Hi everyone, my name is Yea Gi. I'm a general manager at Streamline. I'm currently running 2 brands, a total size of 80 employees, and I've been in the industry for 7 years. I originally started or entered this industry without knowing that I would stay here this long. I originally studied biomedical sciences, and I joined the industry as a Korean language interpreter. I've had a hell of a ride until now, an enjoyable one, but I know that I'm very privileged to have worked with an open-minded people who's given me opportunities to be the best version of myself. So today, I'm going to talk about team excellence. I'm very passionate about building teams and bringing up leaders. And honestly, that's the best part about the job I have. So I'm super happy to discuss this topic. And as you can see from the slide, the subtitle for today's talk is also called People, Process, Technology. And if you stay till the end, you'll find out why. Let's get started. So let's start with a question. What makes an excellent team? So if you're looking at it from a consumer's perspective, as someone who is buying your product, excellent teams are those who create products that suit your needs. For instance, if you're a gamer, it would be a team that makes fun, immersive experiences that are worth the money that you've paid for. But imagine you're a developer, or if you're a developer, business owners, or investor. From that perspective, excellent teams are those who make those set products, the ones that I've described before, so the ones that suits the consumer's needs. So in the case of gamers, who makes fun, immersive experiences, but not once, but repeatedly. A team that's not a one-hit wonder, in other words. So based on that premise, I would define excellent team as team that has 1, creativity and technical abilities to make creative products, supported by a business and an infrastructure that allows them to create that success over and over again. So think about this definition. Team excellence is not just about having a good product. It's about having a business and an infrastructure around the creative team so that they can recreate their success again and again. And remember this definition, or think about it, because we'll come back to this definition later in the slides. So let's talk about what's actually involved in running a creative company, running a game company, or any creative companies. Regardless of which department you are in, there is one thing that every employee in the company will have to do. So for us, there's one thing that every Streamliners would have to do on a daily basis. Can you guess what that is? It is to make as much good decisions as they can at every opportunity they have. And it can be things like defining the target audience of your games, or even deciding like what visual effects to use on your enemy goals, like running around in your game. Running a creative company involves thousands of decision-making on a daily basis. And if you think about it, a highly creative product, in other words, a successful product, and a highly successful business both have this in common. A series of good decisions, whether they were intended or unintended, led them to where they are. Led them to where they are in their state of business, where they are in the state of the product. So you might be wondering, what makes a good decision? Decision making is never easy, because there's all the what ifs, the road not takens, decision paralysis. Sometimes you have too much information. Sometimes you'll never have enough data to make the call. And the truth is, your team can't make the right decision 100% of the time. That's impossible. We'll make the wrong turns simply because we don't have the crystal balls. You don't know for sure unless things happen. And hindsight, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, is always 20/20. So what do? Do we just give up on making decisions? Well, if you noticed how I was phrasing things, I was saying good decisions. I didn't say you have to make the right decisions all the time to have a creative product or a successful business. I'm saying you need to make good decisions. You can't always be right, but you can look back and say, I'm happy with the decision that I made. And that's what I'm referring to right here. So, how do you make good decisions? How can your team make good decisions? Good decisions are made when you have these two things: expertise and resilience. And I will explain. Expertise, your organization needs to have enough expertise in your teams in the right areas to determine what is the best call in a particular situation. Ability to assess what's going on and ability to assess what would be the best call to make in this situation. Whether it's finance, game design, whether it's whatever it is, they need the expertise to make the best call with the information that's available. The second thing you need to make a good decision is resilience. Just because you have the information and expertise, people who can make decisions don't get made. And that's because people make decisions. And unfortunately, people, all of us, are humans. And we are very prone to stress. And that means that when we're faced with a lot of decisions that have to be made at the speed they have to be made at, with the amount of information and factors that affect your decision, it's very prone for you to get into decision paralysis. And for any decision, whether it's good or bad, to be even made in your organization with steady hands, you need resilience. Resilience is key because this courage to make decisions, this steady hands come from resilience. It comes from knowing that they can problem solve regardless of the outcome of their decisions. Knowing that they have a team of support they can rely on to problem solve and navigate the aftermath or the consequences of the decisions that are being made. And I'm saying this, of course, in a relative way in comparison, but expertise is relatively straightforward to acquire compared to resilience in your team. There are a lot of methods out there that have been tried and tested to discover talents during the hiring process. So, for example, you could give out tests. You could check their portfolios. You could check their experiences, where they have worked at before. You could perhaps do reference checks. You could even do interviews to check if they really have the expertise they say they do on their resumes and CVs. But acquiring resilience in your team is a bit more tricky. And because it's more tricky and hard, before I go into the details of how, let me try to first convince you why aiming for resilience is worth the effort. So when it comes to hiring, finding talents with good expertise adds to your team's total capabilities. So if you hired one person, you get +1 expertise. But resilience is a different ballgame. It becomes a multiplier to your team's total capabilities. So for example, while a team of 3 experts will give you a total sum of +3 expertise or +3 capabilities, adding resilient individuals to that mix could multiply your team's total capabilities. So in other words, your team's capability doesn't have to stay at +3. It could be 3 times 3, meaning 9. And it's a bit of maths there, but output of 9 with a hire of 3? And I'm not even referring to long hours being grinded in or overtiming, or I'm not even talking about how much hours they put in. I'm referring to just pure output, the results that these 3 hires can produce. And imagine that in scale. Imagine the power it holds. In larger scale, that's 30 people you need in your team instead of 90. That's 300 people you need in your team instead of 900. And that is why resilience is worth investing in. It's a quantum leap that unlocks your team's next level of possibilities, that brings out that hidden capabilities. Resilience is what gives you supercharged teams. And before I go into the details of how exactly resilience acts as a multiplier, let's take a step back. Resilience is often discussed together with the term VUCA. And VUCA is not a term that I made up. It's a military term used to describe situations that are V, volatile, U, uncertain, C, complex, and A, ambiguous. And why do I describe our industry that way? Well, first, volatile. Things always change. Technology, hardware, software, workflows, even your audience changes. There's a console cycle every 5 to 6 years. Uncertain. There's no scientific formula of guaranteed success in games. It's a trial and error process. Some information just isn't available until you've done it, until you've conducted playtests, released betas, or sometimes until you've shipped a game. Complex. Making a game involves thousands of resources spread over multiple geographical locations. And imagine those thousands of resources all making, whether it's major or minor, decisions that shape your product. You can imagine how complex that is. And lastly, ambiguous. Game shifts and evolves. No one knows how the final game is going to look like. Internally, we say that the game has a life on its own once you start building it. No one knows how the final game is going to look like, no matter how much hours you put into planning, into budgeting, into documenting the GDDs, art bibles. So you need a team that can make clarity out of ambiguous requests and situations. So, in an environment like our industry where change is inevitable, how can this thing called resilience unlock hidden capabilities of your teams? And how exactly would that help you in your organization? Well, let's take a look at how resilience in your organization could change things. Let's take a look at a few scenarios and examples. Well, firstly, resilient individuals are lifelong learners. They don't believe that the curiosity killed the cat. They know that the satisfaction of knowing brought it back. That's a full quote. It's not just the first part where the curiosity killing the cat. There's a second part where the cat was brought back from satisfaction. And these are the people who believe in that. People who believe in the value of trials and errors, value of lessons, and they simply enjoy learning and relearning that comes with volatility and change. They know that throwing out everything they knew and worked with so far and starting over is sometimes necessary, whether it's because of new technology, new consoles, new softwares, new teams, new partnerships. And they even enjoy the opportunity of growth that comes with having to relearn. Another situation that we could look at are that resilient individuals are team players. Their humility and their humbleness, because they know that what they know so far and what they have worked so far isn't necessarily going to 100% translate into the next move. They're team players, and their humility fosters open and safe environment for them to learn together in uncertain situations. They don't just stay as +1 individual contributors. They create environments to learn, teach, and multiply everyone's skills. A third example. Resilient individuals are positive thinkers who will spot opportunities from the glass that's seemingly half full or even empty. Those are the individuals who will see clarity in ambiguous and seemingly scary situations. They don't believe in status quo, and they push for every inch to make a 10 when you're given 1. They're relentless to themselves and to their teams because they believe in themselves and know that their team can do better. And the first example of how resilience could change our organization comes from the fact that resilient individuals have a high emotional intelligence. And you can imagine just all the situations I've described and the examples I've given you. It's a very stressful situation. Things change, and you're working with very highly competitive and people who hold themselves to high standards. But they also have high emotional intelligence. They introspect and they understand. They know who they are. They know what their sense of purpose is, and they have the drive to keep going because of that. And they are value-oriented most of the times. And these qualities, all of them combined, helps the team and the organization find their North Star, so to say, when they get lost amidst the complexity of situations. Because remember, games get made in VUCA situations. There's It's complex and there's plenty of opportunities for you to get lost as a team, as an organization. And I get asked a lot, is that all you need for team excellence? You just find resilient people and add them into the mix and suddenly you get a resilient and excellent team. Unfortunately, no. For team excellence, superstars just won't cut it. And remember, we're talking about long-lasting, supercharged teams who will create success over and over again. So it's not about individuals, or it's not just about individuals. So let's go back to the definition we had at the start of this talk. What makes an excellent team? Well, excellent team is one that has creativity and technical abilities supported by infrastructure. So breaking that down is one that has creativity that comes from people, and the technical abilities to make creative products, technology, supported by a business and an infrastructure that allows them to recreate success over and over again. In other words, process. So in conclusion, it is the trifecta of people, technology, and process, the subtitle of my talk, that make team excellence. And this is why Streamline focus on these three things. So let me go into detail about each of these trifectas. So first, let's start with process. Process is often overlooked when talking about building good teams or building good cultures. Most people think that by focusing on having the right people, the culture gets made. But just like how perfect climate nurtures plants, it doesn't matter how good of a seed you have or how strong of a plant you have, how much potential there is in the seed. It is the right culture, right environment that makes them finally bloom. It is the right environment that attracts and nurtures the resilient people. So we come to this question, how do we create this environment? Well, my advice is to have a look at your processes. Do you have control where it belongs? Do you have decision-making abilities in the right places? Flat hierarchies rather than decisions being bottlenecked in one place. It not only improves the speed of decision-making, but it gives the resilient individuals the fuel in the environment to grow and challenge themselves, a space to grow and learn. And I would also advise, have a look at your process for, do you have a process that allows for safety nets to experiment? Safety nets to invest in people and products with high potential. In Streamline, we have different brands and diversified revenue streams, which makes us less afraid of experimenting. This process gives us the footing to give people and products chances and room to grow. Let's next move on to technology. How does technology create an environment where excellent teams are built? Well, technology connects talents from across the world. Remote working has allowed us to be a global operation, finding talents where they are. Diverse teams from all walks of life, whether they studied games or not, adds to the brain trust of expertise. And bigger brain trust enhances your team's ability to make good decisions through critical thinking. Because if you think about it, what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is about looking at a problem and a solution in a different perspective. And what easier way to do this than by having a very diverse minds to begin with. And also, technology creates transparent platforms for information to be accessible. It's important for you to allow your decision makers that you have given the powers to have access to the right and up-to-date information. Otherwise, their control and expertise gets wasted. You can't expect them to make the best call, best decisions when they don't have all the pieces. And lastly, we come to people. People attract people. And when they're happy with the environment they're in, and when they have created when you have created an environment with the right process and technology that I've outlined before this. And resilient individuals attract more resilient individuals because they enjoy working with each other, because they expect only the best. And when these resilient individuals are supported by more of their kinds, they create this network and safety nets for people to rely on each other. Because remember, the VUCA, decisions have to be made quickly, but things change all the time. And it gets very, very tiring to have to make those calls at that speed all the time. No one can be 100% all the time. And that's why these networks of safety nets, networks of relationships, networks of just having trust banks with each other is so important. Because it helps you bring the individual resilience even stronger to team resilience on an organization level. And lastly, people inspire people. They inspire creativity. And there's something to be said about healthy competition and role models. Creativity is a high contact sport. It involves being brutally candid with each other and with feedback. Resilient people enjoy the process and doesn't let the discomfort of truth stop them from pushing and achieving their best. So I'm coming to my conclusion here. The opportunity for growth in this industry is unmatched. Video games and its associated technologies have the power to change the lives of creators worldwide. But as you know, it's not an industry without problems or issues. And for us to grow as an industry, for us to be better as an industry, I think we need to shift our focus a little from being so heavily focused on the products to building excellent teams. Because again, it's not about one product. It's about people behind that product who made those products. And finding ways to help those people recreate their success again and again. And for that, we need to focus on people, process, and technology. So that's all for my talk today. Thank you so much for listening in. And if you're interested in more of these types of content, follow us on Streamline social media. We often put out our thought leadership pieces from our leaders that are at the front line, including myself, talking about their experiences and their learning as they go. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm happy to make connections on LinkedIn. And thank you very much for your time today. Bye-bye.